When arrogance becomes a man's armor, truth becomes his greatest threat. He thought his charm and wit could manipulate any situation, even destiny itself. To escape an arranged marriage he didn't want, he crafted a flawless lie, a story of amnesia, a convenient blank slate to erase every obligation. His family, desperate to help him recover, unknowingly played into his hands. They hired a gentle, patient woman to help him regain his memory, a woman he believed would be easy to fool, just another pawn in his carefully built illusion. But life, as it often does, had other plans. Days turned into weeks, and the woman who was supposed to be his caretaker became the mirror he couldn't escape. Her kindness wasn't naive, it was disarming. Her silence wasn't submission, it was strength. For the first time, the man who prided himself on control began to lose it, not to manipulation, but to emotion. Every moment with her chipped away at his arrogance. Every glance reminded him of the truth he had buried beneath lies. She saw through the cracks in his performance, not the man he pretended to be, but the one he was too afraid to reveal. Love didn't arrive with thunder or passion. It crept in softly, through laughter, through shared silences, through the simple warmth of being understood. The man who faked amnesia began to forget something real, the reasons he wanted to run. His heart started to remember what his pride had made him forget. That connection, once genuine, is impossible to counterfeit. But the irony of deception is that it builds its own trap. The more he cared, the more impossible it became to confess the lie that started it all. When the truth finally came out, it wasn't gentle. It broke her heart, and it shattered his illusion of control. The woman who had taught him love through patience now walked away with quiet dignity, leaving him to face the very emptiness he once claimed to crave. His lie had freed him from marriage, but it had enslaved him to regret. He had fooled his family, fooled his friends, but in the end he had only fooled himself. And yet destiny has a strange way of returning unfinished stories. When their paths crossed again, not as deceiver and healer, but as two people changed by pain, he finally understood the truth. Deception may start a story, but only honesty can end it well. In losing her, he had found himself, and in finding himself, he realized destiny had never been his to control. It had always been waiting for the moment he'd stop pretending. It began as a game, one he thought he could easily win. To avoid the arranged marriage his family had set up, he staged a perfect lie, fake amnesia, fake emotions, fake life. The arrogant man who believed the world bent to his will now had the perfect excuse to live without accountability. When his family hired a woman to act as his wife and help him recover, he saw it as entertainment, not responsibility. Every smile he gave her, every tender word, every staged memory was part of his performance. He thought he could control every scene, until the story started writing itself in ways he couldn't predict. At first, she was cautious. She treated him with patience, spoke softly, and carried herself with a grace he couldn't mock. Her presence unsettled him, not because she was loud or demanding, but because she was real. He had built a life of surface-level charm, but she saw through his every act. The fake husband she helped every morning began to crave her genuine concern every night. The lines blurred. Where the lie ended and where truth began, he couldn't tell anymore. Pretending to care soon became his only way of feeling alive. For the first time in years, his heart started to participate in the performance. But lies have a cruel way of collecting debt. The more he loved her, the heavier his guilt became. Every time she looked into his eyes and said, "You're getting better," he broke a little more inside. He wanted to tell her the truth, that he was never sick, that the man she cared for had been faking his memory loss all along. But how could he destroy the one thing that had made him human again? The silence between them grew thicker, heavier. filled with unsaid words and unspoken confessions. His own lie had become the wall between them, and every touch, every laugh, every shared glance felt like a sin he could no longer justify. When the truth finally surfaced, it was not through his confession, it was through her discovery. Betrayal doesn't always scream. Sometimes it looks like disbelief, followed by a quiet, broken smile. She didn't shout, didn't curse him, she just walked away, leaving him standing in the ruins of his deception. That silence haunted him more than any words could. He had played with her emotions as part of an act, but she had played her role with sincerity, and it was her honesty that exposed his emptiness. His arrogance crumbled under the weight of her disappointment, and for once he couldn't hide behind lies or pride. In the end, he learned what he should have known from the start: emotions are not props, and hearts are not toys. What began as a staged affection turned into the greatest truth of his life. He loved the woman he deceived, and he lost her because of his own cowardice. Pretend feelings had led to real pain, real loneliness, and real change. When he finally saw her again, she no longer looked at him with the tenderness of the past. But in that cold distance, he found a truth deeper than love, that the cost of pretending is always paid in what's real. He had always believed that the world revolved around him. His success, his charm, and his family's wealth made him untouchable in his own eyes. Every conversation he had was a performance. Every emotion he showed was calculated. When his parents arranged a marriage for him, he scoffed at the idea. Love was a weakness, and commitment was a trap. So, to escape it, he invented a lie as grand as his pride, a fake case of amnesia. He thought he was clever, outsmarting not just his family but fate itself. But arrogance has a way of leading men into the very lessons they try hardest to avoid. When his family hired a woman to help him recover, he thought she'd be just another piece in his elaborate deception. But she wasn't ordinary. She was calm where others were chaotic, firm where others were soft. She didn't treat him like a fragile patient or a spoiled man. She treated him like a human being, one who could be better if he tried. At first he mocked her simplicity, her kindness, her quiet wisdom. But soon her presence began to unsettle him. For the first time, someone saw past his arrogance not with judgment, but with patience. Her words didn't flatter his ego, they challenged it. Her silence didn't feed his pride, it confronted it. Days turned into weeks, and the walls he'd built around his heart began to crack. The man who once found pride in mocking love began to crave her laughter. He started remembering small things, not fake memories from his lie, but real emotions he had long buried. He noticed how she smiled when she was tired, how she spoke gently even when he was cruel, how she believed in the good inside him that he himself couldn't see. The game of deception slowly became a confession of the soul. He began to act less like a man pretending to forget, and more like a man learning to feel, perhaps for the first time. But the weight of truth has a way of catching up. When she discovered that his amnesia had been a lie all along, it wasn't anger that destroyed him, it was her heartbreak. She had cared for him without expectations, believed in him without proof, and he had repaid her faith with deceit. The look in her eyes when she realized the truth became the mirror he had avoided all his life. For once he didn't see the confident, proud man the world admired. He saw the boy hiding behind arrogance, terrified of love, terrified of being known. That moment stripped him of every defense he had ever built, and in the quiet that followed, he finally understood what love truly meant. It wasn't control or pride or performance, it was humility, the courage to admit wrong, the strength to change. He tried to win her back, not with words but with transformation. Gone was the man who faked amnesia to escape love. In his place stood a man who would rather face pain than live without her. His journey from arrogance to affection wasn't a fairy tale. It was redemption through heartbreak. Because sometimes love doesn't just change your heart. It teaches you who you really are beneath the layers of pride you once mistook for power.